this is my review of Sonic X. Okay, so in this episode, Chris, having been lent his father's yacht, decides to take all of his friends and his grandfather out on a nice, lovely cruise to see a glacier. And while this was initially with all the best of intentions, after a few days, some of his friends are going a little stir crazy. So the most obvious is Sonic. Sonic is not a fan of water. He's not really a fan of sitting down and staying still. And basically, yachts are just the two things he hates most. Staying in one place for too long and water. Those two things don't mix, and Sonic is notably getting a lot worse as time goes on. So naturally, Chris is worried that something is wrong with Sonic, and sure enough calls his father to have him pick up Sonic. But then Mr. Tanaka shows up with a bunch of old people from a retirement home and explains that he's actually not there to pick up Sonic, but rather to teach him a lesson, that he needs to learn how to relax, and that these old people will help him do that. And sure enough, they eventually do, but it takes some doing. So it's like pulling teeth. So Sonic is naturally very upset at the fact that he now has to stay instead of leaving like he thought he was going to, and gets increasingly upset. Meanwhile, everybody else has learned to relax because of the old people being around, but it's not Sonic. Sonic is the only one who's expressly told is not having a good time. And sure enough, it gets so bad that he actually starts trying to manipulate people's feelings so that he can try and get the boat turned around so he can actually get home, which blows up in his face rather spectacularly. And sure enough, even Amy is a little bit pissed off at Sonic. Meanwhile, during this, there's actually a little aside with Ella and Bakun. Bakun shows up to basically just hang out. He doesn't really have any sort of evil message or anything like that from Dr. Eggman. He's just there to hang out, but is notably very upset when there's nobody there except for Ella. And sure enough, when Ella shows up and tells him nobody's home, he notably clings to her and tells her that he's sorry and that he doesn't want to be bad, and he's apologizing for all the times he was bad. And sure enough, she forgives him. And this lasts about 5 seconds because almost immediately Bakun is back to his normal antics and then runs off. So this shows that Bakun likes the Thorndikes and being around them, and he likes being around Sonic and his friends. But there's a bit of a conflict of interest because he works for Eggman, and also he's kind of hardwired to be a little bit of a mischievous little child. So there's a lot of conflict. There's quite a few conflicts of interest within Bakun's character. So, in any case, Sonic is hanging out on top of one of the support poles, well away from Amy. When Dr. Eggman finally shows up with his new ship that he calls the Egg Fort 2 because his original Egg Fort broke, and he brought in his backup. Eggman doesn't actually do anything in this episode. He shows up, does a couple of menacing things, but he never actually does anything productive in this episode. Most of his time in this episode is of him arguing with Tico and Bogo about their new toy and what they actually should call it. Most of his time in this episode is spent arguing with Tico and Bogo, and he doesn't actually do anything. So naturally, Sonic tries to fight him because now they're at the glacier, which is where they were headed the whole time, and the two of them try to face off. Sonic is having a bit of a hard time keeping his footing, and is also a little stressed on top of that, so he's just kind of staying in place and getting shot at. Eventually, though, one of the old ladies that Mr. Tanaka brought with him actually gets to Sonic and explains that if he just relaxes and thinks about where he is, he'll be able to defeat Dr. Eggman no problem. And sure enough, Sonic does exactly that and is able to actually hold his footing. But Dr. Eggman, realizing something is wrong and realizing he's not terrified when he just had Sonic on the ropes a couple of minutes ago, decides to once again open fire. But then something interesting happens. So, you remember Bakun? remember how I mentioned that he pissed off Ella earlier? Well, apparently it escalated quite a bit. Because in that moment, Bo-kun had actually found out where Dr. Eggman was holed up, and Ella had actually chased after him in the X-Tornado, having somehow taught herself how to fly it, and chases after him, and then kicks the Egg Fort 2 square in the cockpit and sends it flying. So yeah, as Chuck explains, Ella can do anything she sets her mind to, except do the windows. That's big. So yeah, it's not much of an explanation, but she's just kind of, but it just kind of escalates the whole thing. That there was this little side plot off to the side, and it escalates to the point where Ella chases down Bo-kun with the X-Tornado. It's a funny gag to be sure, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I'm really okay with it. But yeah, remember how he said Dr. Eggman doesn't really contribute much to this episode? He still doesn't. He doesn't even get defeated by Sonic. Ella just shows up, does a thing, and he disappears. We never hear from him again for the rest of this episode. Although, a positive comes out of Eggman showing up, which is that now Sonic is actually able to relax on the cruise ship, which is what the intent of the episode was the whole time. This wasn't about him fighting Dr. Eggman. This was about him learning how to not go stir crazy on a cruise ship. That was the focus of the episode, and by the end of the episode, he learns how to do that. So, in that regard, he actually does a pretty good job of that. He eventually realizes that him fighting Dr. Eggman when he's calm and collected can also be applied to him relaxing. And as soon as that clicks in his head for him, he's finally able to actually relax and enjoy himself. And that's touching. So Sonic finally figures out how to relax. That's what the episode's about, and that's okay. It doesn't really need to be this huge plot related thing. But Sonic is just kind of, he learns to relax, and that's okay. But in any case, yeah, that's my review of Sonic X. What did you guys think? Well, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, if you want to help support the show, then be sure to check out my Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps you out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way of saying thanks, so be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!